Okay, so we ended up right here with the causality, and then we've got a couple more. If they are self-funded or self-interest studies, you got to double check really carefully because if they are paying for this thing, they're going to want it to turn out the way they want to. But they can have self-funded ones that are totally good. You just have to read the study carefully. Do not automatically assume that the study is good, but do not automatically assume that it's bad either. Okay? Make sure that you can evaluate for that. Misleading use of data, improperly displayed graphs, incomplete data, or lack of context. We've got some of that I was showing you earlier. Confounding, when the effects of multiple factors on a response cannot be separated. Confounding makes it difficult or impossible to draw valid conclusions about the effect of each factor. Sometimes you just got too many things to control. And so when you've got too many of them, you can't separate it out to know that any one thing has an effect on it. 7 steps in designing a study or an experiment. Identify the population and the variables of interest of the study. Develop a plan to collect data, and we've been over all those plans that you've got. Make sure the sample's representative of the population. Collect the data, and we've got all the different ways you can collect the data. Use descriptive statistics to describe the data, your mean, median, mode, standard deviation. And inferential statistics to interpret the data. What does this actually mean? And you'll identify any errors. So you need to know those 7 steps. Okay. During the 2008 Olympic Games, a U.S. swimmer won more medals than any other swimmer in history. What sampling method could you use to find the percent of students in your school who recognize that swimmer from a photograph? Systematic, Every nth person entering the school, however many people, every 5th person. What you would not want to ask is what those that we were doing earlier that talked about a bias in the question is say, do you recognize Michael Phelps? Okay, well, they're going to know the name. They're going to know he's a swimmer. Or if you put him in front of a pool, do you recognize this guy? Well, you've kind of given it away by putting him in front of a pool. So make sure that when you ask the question, you don't have any kind of bias involved in that. Okay. There we go. What is an example of a survey question that is likely to yield information that has no bias? Well, we kind of covered that in the last one. Who is the person in this picture? But you don't have a picture of a swimming pool. You don't have any Olympics memorabilia. You don't have anything like that on it. It's strictly who is this person in the picture. A political candidate wants to know what percent of his constituency favors a referendum A on an upcoming ballot election. His staff asked each person who comes into the candidate's office for 3 days whether they support referendum A. Well, it's convenient sampling because it's convenient for them, whoever's coming into the office. The problem is, if they're coming into the office, they probably already support this candidate, so they're probably already going to believe the same sort of stuff he believes, or they wouldn't support the candidate. So very likely they're going to get a very biased group that's not representative of the entire population. The manager of a grocery store wants to determine what percent of shoppers use store coupons. He asks every 10th shopper who passes through the store's door for the next week if he or she intends to use a store coupon on his or her visit. That's systematic because he does every 10th shopper, so that would make it systematic. He also wants them to know who uses store coupons. So he would definitely want to use people who are in the store. So that's pretty much a no bias question at all, because that's exactly that's focused exactly on what he wants to know. Scientists study the effects of the phases of the moon on the levels of low tide and high tide in the 200 coastal cities in the U.S. for a period of 12 months. It's an observation. And as long as they've got, they're studying it over a year, then it's pretty reliable. They could use it. A pet food company randomly chooses 2 groups of 20 puppies for a study. One group eats a new brand of dog food and the other group eats an off brand of dog food for a period of 4 weeks. Researchers record muscular and skeletal growth rates in both groups. It's controlled and observational experiment. Oh, it's an experiment, sorry. But it's not really reliable because you don't really know if there's other issues there's other issues involved in that. So you really, let's say that the first group that was using the new brand of dog food, your random 20 puppies were Boston Terriers. The other random 20 puppies were boxers. Well, the boxers are going to outperform Boston Terriers in growth any day of the week because they are automatically a bigger breed. So it's not really reliable. You'd have to make sure that the 20 puppies were in the same classifications, same sort of thing, so that they would be equivalent. For a class project, students in health class ask every 10th student entering the school if they eat breakfast in the morning. That's a survey. It is systematic because you got every 10th student entering. Every 10th student makes that systematic. And it seems pretty reliable because you're dealing with, you want students, and that's what you got entering the school building. So it seems pretty reliable to me. That's it, though. That's the whole thing. Make sure you go back and review all of the different ways that make these things reliable or unreliable, biased or not. Make sure you have that down.